Okay. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to assembled Vaishnava devotees. And all glories to our revered speaker, His Grace BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu. Dear devotees, we thank you as always for being here. Our speaker needs no introduction. Of course, I'm proud to say, I should say, humbly proud to say that he is my god brother. And it's difficult to catch, but somehow Shri Krishna Guru have arranged for us to have this association today. So we encourage the devotees to be quite attentive. So we all get nourished by Shri Krishna Katha that will be inspired by His Grace BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu. So Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, and thank you for being here. Even though it's your own home, we still welcome you to your own home, Hare Krishna, Africa. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be with you, with all of you. It's wonderful to have, as always, opportunities to purify ourselves by remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, through this wonderful literature, the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, the Amala Purana, the Spotless Purana. So we will read from third canto, the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. This chapter is the third canto, chapter 4. This chapter is entitled The Status Quo. So we'll be reading, the canto itself, canto 3, is entitled The Status Quo. This chapter, chapter 4, is entitled Vidura Approaches Maitreya. Okay, so we're reading from 3, 4, 32. Okay, so what I'll do is I will, okay, we have it on the screen, that's perfect. So I will chant the Sanskrit translation, we'll read the purport, then we can discuss, explore some of the wonderful themes, and also really dive into what this means for us as well. I also want to offer my respectful obeisances to all the devotees who are on the call, especially my worshipable seniors, Sahadev Prabhu, Mother Yashoda, Loka, so many others, and to beg their blessings so we can say something that will be pleasing to the Guru Parampara, the Shri Radha, Shamasunda, Brother Damodar, Shri Gornitai. Okay, so this verse, text number 32. Evam Tri Loka Guruna Santista Shabda Yonina Badayara Asadya Harim Ije Samadina. Evam, thus, Triloka, 3 worlds, Guruna, by the spiritual master, Sandistaha, being perfectly taught, Shabda Yonina, by one who is the source of all Vedic knowledge, Badayashraman, in the pilgrimage site of Badarikashram, Asadya, reaching, Harim, unto the Lord, Ij, satisfied, Samadina, by trance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shukadev Goswami informed the king. So the king here means Pariksit Maharaj, because Shukadev Goswami is communicating with him these pastimes of the Bhagavatam. Shukadev Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badarikashram and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord. purport. Lord Sri Krishna is factually the spiritual master of the three worlds, and he is the original source of all Vedic knowledge. It is very difficult, however, to understand the personal feature of the absolute truth, even from the Vedas. His personal instructions are needed in order to understand the personality of Godhead as the supreme absolute truth. Bhagavad Gita is the evidence of such transcendental knowledge in gist. One cannot know the Supreme Lord unless one is graced by the Lord himself. Lord Krishna exhibited this specific mercy towards Arjuna and Uddhava while he was in the material world. Okay. Undoubtedly, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to encourage Arjuna to fight, and yet to complete the transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord instructed Uddhava. The Lord wanted Uddhava to fulfill his mission and disseminate knowledge which he had not spoken even in Bhagavad Gita. Persons who are attached to the words of the Vedas may also know from this verse that the Lord is the source of all Vedic knowledge. One who is unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by going through the pages of the Vedas may take shelter of one of the Lord's devotees, such as Uddhava, in order to advance further in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahma Samhita says that it is very difficult to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedas, but he is easily understood from a pure devotee like Uddhava. Taking mercy on the great sages who lived at Badarikashram, the Lord authorized Uddhava to speak on his behalf. Unless one has such authorization, one cannot understand or preach the devotional service of the Lord. While present on this earth, the Lord executed many uncommon activities, even traveling in space to bring down the Parijata from heaven and recovering the son of his teacher, Sandipani Muni, from the regions of death. Uddhava was certainly informed of the conditions of life on other planets, and all the sages were anxious to know of them, just as we are anxious to know about the planets in space. Uddhava was particularly deputed to carry a message to Badarikashram, not only to the sages of that place of pilgrimage, but also to the Nara Narayan deities. Such a message must have been more confidential than the knowledge described in the pages of the Vedas. The Lord is undoubtedly the source of all knowledge, and the messages dispatched through Uddhava to Nara Narayan and other sages were also part of the Vedic knowledge, but they were more confidential and could be sent or understood only through such a pure devotee as Uddhava. Since such confidential knowledge is known only to the Lord and Uddhava, it is said that Uddhava was as good as the Lord himself. Every living entity can, like Uddhava, also become a confidential messenger on the same level as the Lord, provided he becomes confidential himself by dint of loving devotional service. Such confidential knowledge is entrusted as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita only to pure devotees like Uddhava and Arjuna. And one has to learn the mystery through them and not otherwise. One cannot understand Bhagavad Gita or SRIMAD Bhagavatam without the help of such confidential devotees of the Lord. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that confidential message must have concerned the mystery of his departure and the annihilation of his dynasty after the end of his appearance in the mundane world for 100 years. Everyone must have been very anxious to know about the mystery of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, and that message must have been explained by the Lord to Uddhava and dispatched to Badarikashram for the information of Nara, Narayan, and other pure devotees of the Lord. Okay, so I'll just say some prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chekshu Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Virgina Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sut Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchikapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll just add one more prayer because we're looking at the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Shukadev Goswami informed the king that Uddhava, being thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all Vedic knowledge and the spiritual master of the three worlds, reached the pilgrimage site of Badarik Ashram and engaged himself there in trance to satisfy the Lord. This verse, as with all beautiful verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is always very pregnant with meaning, and the grace of Srila Prabhupada is that we've been given something which we can unpack, we can learn from, we can be illuminated by, we can be enlightened by, we can use practically. The blessings of the Bhagavatam are unstoppable and they never end. And what we wanted to do is just touch upon a few of the priceless and life-transforming points which are given in this section, in this particular verse. Before we get to this, I wanted to share with you a story and a discussion that I had today. Well, first a story, which I heard before, and a discussion which I had today. So, there was a story of someone who had lost something. So it was late at night, and this guy who he'd actually lost his keys. You know, sometimes when people lose their keys, they're very concerned because if I can't find my keys, especially if you're at a distance, you can't drive, right? Because you can't get to the car. And if they're your keys to your home, let's say no one's in, if you lose your keys, you can't even get into your house. So naturally, this gentleman was concerned. He lost his keys. It's late at night. It's dark. So he starts looking for his keys. While he's looking for his keys, someone walks by and they notice that this man's looking for something. And they notice also that the man looks quite anxious, quite concerned, quite worried. And so the passerby, naturally being very concerned, being a well-wisher, he goes to the man who's looking for his keys and he says to him, "What are you looking for? You seem to be a bit worried about something, and I can see you actively looking around. What's wrong?" So the man says to him, "I've lost my keys. I'm a bit concerned. I need them, so that's why I'm looking." So the passerby says to him, "Maybe I can help, tell me, help me to understand exactly where did you lose them?" And the man who was looking for his keys, he pointed across the road. He said, "I lost them over there on the other side of the road." And the passerby for a moment was shocked, a bit stunned, confused. And he said, I don't understand. you've just told me that you've lost your keys on the other side of the road, but you're looking for your keys here. I don't understand what's going on. Like, please, it doesn't seem to be logical. If your keys were lost over on the other side, why are you looking for them here? And the man replied, he said, I'm looking for my keys here because this is the area that I can see. There's a lamp here, right? So I'm looking here because this is the area that I can see. And that's a very interesting story because it is a story of humanity. The story of humanity is a global civilization, a global society looking for something, looking for the keys to existence, but not looking for them in the right place. This verse in purple speaks to this. Shukadev Goswami informed the king, and he's informing the king about the fact that Uddhava had been instructed by Krishna. And then this, both verse and purple, Prabhupada will touch upon this concept or this theme of knowledge, how Krishna is a source of all Vedic knowledge, and how he's the spiritual master of all three worlds. Again and again in the purple, Prabhupada will touch upon this. So we thought we could really explore this and related themes as we go through today's discussion. The story relates also to a conversation I had today. We have a book club and we were discussing aspects of Krishna conscious teachings, the teachings of bhakti. And an interesting question came up. The interesting question that came up is, how do we know what we should be doing? Right? How do we access that kind of knowledge? And the context for that question was that sometimes we know, because we were talking about surrender, and the context was that sometimes we know that we want something. But if we cultivate this understanding that what we want isn't always what's best for us, it helps us to understand the value, the power, in fact, the necessity of being able to surrender to what Krishna knows is best. Right? So these two patterns are constantly playing out in the lives of everyone. There's what we want, and then there's actually what's really best for us. So someone on the call, because they're different people on the call, and some of them are more interested in bhakti, some of them have their own conception. One of them had the conception that actually that there's God, there's source, and that I'm equal with the source and I'm the source, etc. Very much an impersonal idea. And it got me thinking about this purport, because in this purport, Prabhupada is also touching upon this idea that it's hard to understand the personal feature of God. In fact, it's hard to understand that God has a personal feature. Krishna has a personal feature. So Brahmati Paramatmati Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. Many religious traditions, many spiritual traditions have absolutely no problem with Brahmati. Right? In fact, in many ways, it is very, very easy to accept Brahmati, right? Because we can see everywhere that there is energy, right? Gross matter is energy in a hardened form. But we can also see, or rather, we can also accept as an everyday fact that there are different types of energy. You have a remote control, you use infrared energy that allows you to use a remote control to play your music system. Everyone in the education system will have heard of electromagnetic energy, right? In the modern technological world that we live in, people will have Wi-Fi, data on their phone, right? So another kind of energy. So we constantly, people played the radio, tune into the radio, they understand about radio waves. So in the modern world, it is not so fantastic to understand the concept of energy because we have some experience of energy. But to go beyond the gross or limited experience which is what is being spoken about here, to understand higher truth, higher knowledge, we must, according to our teaching, according to the Vedic literature, and actually according to logic itself, we must go to a higher source of knowledge. Where does knowledge come from? In the modern world, many people are bewildered. In fact, Prabhupada talked about the material scientists, and he said something which is so profound, but it's easy to miss. He said they are always adding and subtracting. Now, when you first hear it, you think, well, it doesn't make any sense. What do you mean adding and subtracting? You know, he was actually talking about this idea that scientists, so you'll watch the news and the scientists will say, scientists have just discovered, right? Or they'll say that previously we thought this, but now a new breakthrough has happened and scientists have now discovered this. So what Prabhupada was getting at is that they're guessing. If what they said previously is now superseded by something different, it means that what they said previously was actually wrong. You see? But no one wants to say it like that. Scientists, imagine if the news said instead, scientists got it wrong. What the scientists told us was true for the last 50, 60, 100, 500 years. What they previously told us was true. They've now discovered, oops, sorry, that they were completely incorrect. You see? It's the same thing, but it's said in a different way. And because it's said in a different way, they're able to get away with the fact that actually what they're really admitting is that they were wrong. They actually were wrong. The scientists, when it comes to understandings about the nature of reality, the nature of the universe, the material scientific endeavor is very much like that man who's looking for the keys on the side of the road where he can see. He doesn't actually understand, or he doesn't properly grasp the fact that just because you can see this area, it doesn't mean that that's where the answer is, right? And in fact, he knows actually deep down, if he's honest, that I'm looking in this area because that's the area I can perceive. He doesn't want to accept the fact that their answers may be somewhere else, but you may not have the qualification to look in that particular place. This is fundamental. Our understanding of reality is guru, actually. What do I mean that? I don't even mean that in a Krishna conscious way. It means that we are led by our understanding. Depending on what I believe or understand about life and about the world, about truth, that's going to determine everything else. It is the invisible and most potent part of the entire chain. Everything starts with understanding. From understanding comes activity, and from activity comes outcome. Right now in the world, you'll be familiar with this, especially if you're in the US. There's so much of this use of this term, fake news. Okay, why? Because it's implicitly understood that whatever people believe to be true is going to affect everything else that they do. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is a paradigm shift. This verse talks about Krishna being the source of all Vedic knowledge. Veda means knowledge. Vedescha save aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. He says, I'm the source of all the Vedas, right? In fact, by the Vedas, he says, I'm what is to be known by the Vedas. Depending on what we believe to be true, that determines everything else about our lives. So, what is the ultimate fake news? The ultimate fake news is that you're this body. The ultimate fake news is that because you're this body, therefore, what will actually make everyone happy is to just engage in sense gratification. It is the ultimate fake news. But that ultimate fake news is the fake news which has sabotaged the satisfaction of all living entities in the world. If people were able, if we were able to uproot this avidya, ignorance, misconception, our entire life journey would change. And this is the key point. What we believe in our hearts as true, it actually is the guru or the leader of everything that we do in the world. So it is one of the most powerful things that anyone can do. And I personally believe we don't do this anywhere near it as much as we should. It is so powerful and transformative if we can change the concepts that we have accepted in the heart. That's the root. If I can change what I believe to be true by replacing the fake news with a transcendental knowledge, it will automatically change the way that I think. It will automatically change the way that I feel. It will automatically change the way that I live my entire life. And you could say that one of the ways of defining the journey of Krishna consciousness is actually, one of the ways of defining that journey is actually defining or looking at the journey of transcendental knowledge from the head to the heart. When the transcendental knowledge is fully in the heart, that's a tipping point. When it's fully in the heart, it will be fully in my life. It will be fully shown by my words, thoughts, deeds, and activities. So our Krishna conscious practice and process is transformative to the extent that it's actually done properly. Now, interesting in this verse, when Shukadev Goswami is speaking to the king, he said that Krishna is the spiritual master of the three worlds. And Prabhupada mentions about how the sages wanted to know about life on other planets. Taking this theme again of knowledge is so powerful. When the material scientists are looking for life on other planets, what do? What do all scientists do? All scientists, all experimenters, they have to, in order to experiment, they have to make some assumptions. You see? In order to experiment, you have to make an assumption. What is the biggest assumption of the scientist? The biggest assumption of the scientist, of the material scientist, is that the origins of the universe are themselves material. Therefore, by using material methods, by using material instruments, by using a material process, I can understand the source of this material universe. It's an assumption. Is there any evidence that the source of this material universe is itself material? Is there any way that the scientist could say, I did the experiment, and because I've already confirmed that the source of this material universe is material, that's why I've now been able to actually say, therefore, it makes complete sense for me to use a material process to understand it. Did you ever hear any scientists come on television and say, I confirmed it? No, it's an assumption, right? This point about life on other planets, when scientists are looking for life on other planets, it's very interesting. What do they assume? They assume it has to be some kind of physical life. Right? Often they talk about carbon-based life. So they're looking for some kind of physical life, physical structures, right? There'll be if there's a civilization on other planets, we will know because they will have physical structures. Where did that come from? What experiment have they done? What have they done to confirm that all life has to be physical? Again, they've done nothing. It's an assumption. We're here, we have physical bodies, we have physical structures, houses, homes, skyscrapers, cars, buildings. We're here, we have physical structures. So therefore, we're just going to assume that life everywhere else would have to have some of these same hallmarks. Have they done the experiment to test that? Have they got any way to test that? No, it's just an assumption. So what's actually behind all of this is that when people are trying to state what they consider to be reality, they always do it from a place of guesswork. They always do it from a place of making assumptions. And that's why, from the spiritual point of view, it's always wrong. Not that it's always wrong in terms of some detail, right? So there are experiments which have proven certain things within the confines of the material world. Okay, we have engines that work, we have technology that works. That doesn't mean just because I understand how to make a microwave, it doesn't mean I understand how the universe began. Those are two very different areas of science or technology. So this point about the source of all knowledge, it has deep, profound meaning. Again, Shukadev Goswami speaking to the king Pariksit, the Uddhava, he was given knowledge. He was given knowledge by the person who did everything, who created everything. That is actually the most logical way to gain knowledge. The most logical way to gain knowledge about something is to find out about it from the person who made it. Just like you buy a product and it has a manual, okay? Some kind of book, and that manual has been created by the people who made the product. It's been created by the people who invented the product. Because they invented it, they can tell you, I'm going to tell you how my invention works. You press this button, it does this. You press that button, this happens. It makes complete and logical sense to understand the creation from the person who created it in the first place. Therefore, Krishna says, Aham savasya prabhavo, mata savam pravartate, iti matva bhajante mam, Buddha bhava samamvita. It makes complete sense. In fact, it is actually the most logical thing to understand Krishna by hearing from Krishna. Now, there's only one exception to that, which is being spoken of here. And that is, I can also understand Krishna by hearing from someone who knows him very, very closely. In this verse, it is speaking about Uddhava and how Uddhava was instructed by Krishna, and Uddhava then goes to a place called Badarikashram in order to give a message to the sages of that place, but also to give a message to Narayan Rishi. Now, Uddhava, he knows Krishna very, very intimately. In fact, he's Krishna's cousin. In fact, not only is he Krishna's cousin, but Uddhava is so Krishna conscious that he actually looks like Krishna himself. I was listening to a class earlier today, and one of the points which are explained is that actually Krishna's complexion, that blackish bluish complexion that Krishna has, is not a blue that exists in this material world. Right? Sometimes in our scriptures, it will describe Krishna's form and it will say blackish like a newborn rain cloud, right? It will talk about so many attributes. We've just finished this Kartik month, and in these prayers that we recite during the month of Kartik, it talks about how his eyes are reddish, his lips like bimba fruit, blackish hair tinged with red. Very, very intimate descriptions of God. Why? Why? Because of exactly the same reason being spoken of in this verse in purport. That even if one is in touch with the Vedas, even then it's very difficult to know about the personal feature. In order to understand the personal feature of God, we have to hear from someone who has a personal relationship with him. Uddhava is so Krishna conscious, he actually looks like the supreme personality of Godhead himself. But he's a servant of Krishna. And so he's being sent with this message. And this is, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how Uddhava was as good as God, as good as Krishna. And that we can also, meaning he was on the same level, because he's passing on that message. And that we can also become confidential messengers of Krishna if we cultivate our loving devotional service to the Supreme. Now, this is really important. What does that love do? When we love someone, when we selflessly care about someone, when we want what is best for them only, it removes all the selfishness from the heart. And when we remove, or to the extent that we remove all the selfishness from the heart, it's very, very interesting. The more that we remove our selfishness from the heart, the more that we can see everything clearly, the more that that knowledge is actually realized. Realized knowledge means selfless devotional service. And selfless devotional service actually means to see and to be satisfied. It is so interesting. Why do we suffer in this world? There's many ways that people talk about suffering in this world, but the Bhagavatam also talks about this. It says that the root cause of all suffering is ignorance. You see, when I'm ignorant, I have a certain view of the world that I do not want to give up, even though it's not true. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? We are suffering. The cause of our suffering is that we hold on to a false understanding of reality. We hold on to fake news. If the snake outside, if I hold on to a misconception, no, it's a stick. It's not a snake. You know, Sahadev's telling BHUTABHAVANA, it's a snake. It will bite you. I'm like, Sahadev, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not a snake. It's a stick. You know, you're being fanatical. You know, it's absolutely fine. I can say that all I want. Something isn't true just because I say it. Something isn't true just because I believe it. If Sahadev tells me it's a snake and I still insist, no, it's a stick, great. What will I then do? Again, the chain of ignorance. I first have this false conception, right? I keep saying it's a stick. Now, also, this is also really important. Why do I insist it's a stick? Why do I insist it's a stick? I insist it's a stick because I don't want to accept Sahadev as an authority. I don't want to believe what Sahadev said. Why do we all have to listen to Sahadev? You know, who does he think he is? I'm better than Sahadev. I know more than Sahadev, and I'm going to prove it. Whatever Sahadev says, I'm going to say it's rubbish. So the first reason why we hold on to ignorance, avidya, is because we don't want to accept that someone has superior understanding to us. Ultimately, my envy of Krishna means that whatever he says, I don't want to accept it. That's the first point. So my envy causes me to not accept what is being told to me by a superior authority. There's another reason why I want to insist that the snake is a stick. Why? Because I've got some other desire. I want to use a stick. Because I want to use a stick, there's something in my house that's broken, and there's a chair on my leg. There's a leg of the chair in my house that's broken. If I can find a stick, I can use that stick to make my chair steady. Right? I can replace the broken leg with a stick. So because I've got envy for the source of knowledge, I don't want to accept what I'm being told. And because I've got desire for something in my own life, anything that goes against what I want to believe, anything that competes with my desire, I also want to reject. So this envy and this attachment causes me to reject the truth. So now Sahadev has told me it's a snake, but I don't want, whatever Sahadev says, I don't want to believe it. And also I need a stick. So I now look at the world and because of my own desire, I think, oh, if I want to believe it's a stick. But now the problem comes when I do the following. The problem comes when I try to go into that garden and I try to pick up what I think is a stick, and then I get bitten. Now I've got bitten. Now I'm hurt. Now I'm also poisoned. And where did it all begin? It all began with my refusal to accept the truth. It all began with my ignorance. Right? So therefore we understand the root cause of all suffering is actually ignorance. Right? So knowledge has to come from a supreme source, but in order for us to embrace it, This is what we don't always talk about. It's one thing to have the knowledge, but it's another thing to embrace it, to accept it, to live by it. That requires some qualification on my part. It requires some humility on my part. There's different types of humility. One type of humility is recognizing that I don't know everything and that I need help to understand. I need to go to a superior source, because the humility there is I have to accept the principle that there's something superior, someone superior. In the modern world, therefore, many people don't want to accept this idea of spiritual books of knowledge, whether it's the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, or even the scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, the SRIMAD Bhagavatam. Often we don't want to accept it, and especially when it challenges our belief system. There's two competitions that go on. The first competition is the competition to enter the arena of transcendental knowledge. So devotees they've passed that first hurdle. Okay, we have some acceptance that we don't know, and we're gonna accept these transcendental literatures in a general sense. That's one hurdle. But I've seen in the life of devotees, there's another level. There's another level, because it's one thing that I've accepted that there's a whole paradigm of knowledge that goes beyond what I'm just seeing and hearing in this world, and that I have to accept it. But then even within the teachings of Krishna consciousness, sometimes we will hear and read something that we don't want to accept, even as devotees within the realm of Krishna consciousness, right? Because even in the realm of Krishna consciousness, there'll be something that I read and hear which challenges my previously held beliefs. And sometimes, frankly, devotees are exhausted. I've done so much work to accept a different paradigm. And now within that paradigm, I've still got to make some adjustment. Krishna, that's too much. Yeah? But if we keep working on ourselves, and if we keep making the journey, Uddhava's gone to Badrikashram. If we also make that journey to imbibe Krishna's message, something extraordinary is waiting for us on the journey to Krishna. And that is, you are a different person who arrives at the destination compared to the person who started the journey. Isn't that interesting? When we make the journey in Krishna consciousness, the person who arrives on the doorsteps of Vaikuntha, the person who arrives in the spiritual world, is different to the person who started the journey. The beauty of Krishna consciousness is that it's all about identity. It's all about identity. And there's a very subtle but very powerful point that's made about identity. In Krishna consciousness, the person who arrives at the gates of Vaikuntha is different to the person who began the journey, and at the same time, they're the same person. Strange thing to say, but how can I say this? It's like this. Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says, is not an artificial imposition on the mind. We've heard this oftentimes. Prabhupada said this, but what did he mean by that? It's so powerful. It is not an artificial imposition on the mind. What he means is the following. Krishna consciousness is not about becoming something. Our spiritual master, he was giving a presentation to the GBC, and he was giving some points about the outreach, the outreach programs that he was running. And one of the points that he made, which was very profound for me when I first heard those points, and still to this day is profound. He said that we often approach outreach with a material mentality. Right? What he meant by that is that we think that there's these people in the world and we have to try to make them become Krishna conscious. He said, no, it's wrong. He said, actually, what we should understand is that every single person that we meet they are already a devotee. Okay. Again, following Prabhupada's theme that Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. We're not going to add, we're not going to put Krishna consciousness on them. He said we should understand everyone is a devotee. And therefore, our mission, our job is to see how to help them, how to help ourselves also remove those artificial layers, those artificial barriers that are stopping them from being completely natural. Right? Very interesting. Perfection is not when there is nothing left to add. Perfection in Krishna consciousness is when there is nothing else to take away. When we remove all of the things which are not truly us. Some of us on this call, we're in African bodies. Some of us on this call, we're in male bodies or female bodies. Some of us on this call may be in other kinds of bodies. That body is something that is artificially on top of the soul. So this Krishna consciousness movement is to remove those things which are artificial so that we show up as who we truly, naturally, and eternally actually are. It's a very, very different paradigm. And if we approach others with that understanding, it changes the way that we reach out to them, actually. Because now it's not like, oh, they wouldn't understand, they're from here or they're from there. So no, they're actually devotees by nature. How do we help them to remove the misconceptions and the artificial layers of conditioning that they've taken on so that they can be their real self once again? And that paradigm, it is also coming from this transcendental knowledge. Again, another assumption coming from identity. If I believe I'm the body, what am I going to do with my life? If I believe I'm the body, then because of identity, identity leads to action. Identity leads to action and interaction. If I truly believe I'm this body, that is the root cause of all my material behaviors. If I truly believe I'm the body, of course I'm going to do things for the body. Duh. If I think I'm the body, of course I'm going to have material engagements, material activities, because the activity is coming from what I think that I am. So what is Prabhupada doing through the pages of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM? He's giving us an understanding of our natural identity. And again, how is that information coming? The information has to come through Krishna or those who know Krishna, i.e. the spiritual master. You see, this is how everything actually works in the real world. We have to receive knowledge from a higher source, from perfect sources. Otherwise, we will be misled, and that's normal. In fact, in many ways, it's what we do every day. You get ill, what do? You go to a doctor. You don't try and guess for yourself what you think it's about. You get the information from a more qualified and expert source of knowledge. And only by that process can we really understand the truth. And when we understand the truth, we can live by the truth. Prabhupada in the purport talks about Brahma Samhita. The Brahma Samhita says it is very difficult to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedas, but he is easily understood from a pure devotee like Uddhava. Taking mercy on the great sages who lived at Badrikashram, the Lord authorized Uddhava to speak on his behalf. So when Krishna wants to give a message, either he comes himself or he sends his representative. Right? He sends his representative not just to give knowledge, but to give taste. It's so amazing. In the Vedic paradigm, leadership, for example, in the Vedic paradigm is not the leader says something. No, leadership in the Vedic paradigm is a lot higher than that. In the Vedic paradigm, the leader does what he or she wants everyone else to do, right? If the king wants to if the king declares war, the king is on the battlefield fighting. He's not at home sitting down on a sofa, talking about, our brave troops, our brave soldiers out on the battlefield, while he's sitting at home with a cup of hot tea, watching television. No, leading means leadership. Leading means leading by example. Leading means leading by example. So this is a very, very different paradigm. This paradigm of giving knowledge, but also giving taste. When devotees saw Prabhupada, they knew that there was a God by his example. When they saw Prabhupada, they knew that there was taste. There was a greater level of satisfaction they could experience by his actual example, because they saw someone and they saw that the way this person is living, that lifestyle, and the obvious satisfaction and contentment that this person is experiencing, it's evidence actually. Prabhupada's life and the life of all pure devotees is actually evidence of the reality of spiritual life. I repeat, the lifestyle, the behaviors of pure devotees is evidence of the existence of God. It's evidence of not just the existence of Krishna, it's evidence of the taste, the ecstasy, the contentment that comes by living in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A question often comes up. Do we need to go to the class? Why can't we just listen to a recording? Do we need to go to the temple? Right? I've got a picture of the deities on my wall. Why do I need to go to the temple? It's as good as. No. What actually happens if there's only classes available online or recordings, good, we should still listen to them. But whenever possible, whenever sadhus are present and they are physically present, we can actually go and be around them physically, externally. Whenever sadhus are present and we have the opportunity, we should go and physically be in front of them and listen to them directly. Why? One of the reasons, amongst many, is that when you are in the physical presence of pure or advanced devotees, it leaves a deeper transformative effect on our hearts. Right? Because their consciousnesses, their presence is evidence. This is a secret to advancing in spiritual life. We want to be, as much as possible, directly exposed to the pure example of pure personalities. And that direct exposure is evidence, it's transformative. It leaves the impression in our hearts, which move us forward. And of course, Bhagavatam itself says that by rendering service to the pure devotee, Srimvata Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya and Bhagavati Uttama Shlokiya Bhakti Bhagavati Naishtaki. By hearing, by regular classes in attendance of the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, everything that is troublesome to the heart is destroyed almost to nil. That means both the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavatat and the book Bhagavat, they are what? They're medicine. They're medicine. And linking it back to this knowledge point, this perception point. When we clean our hearts in Krishna consciousness, our perception changes. Why? Because we all see the world, we all see other people, we all see ourselves using a mirror. And what is that mirror? The mirror is the mirror of consciousness. This Cheto Darpana Marjanam is so powerful because the more I clean the mirror, the more I see the world clearly. My reality, my understanding of reality is based upon the quality of the reflection of the mirror. So when the Bhagavad Gita talks about the mirror being covered by dust, it is getting at the root cause of all of our suffering. I have some misunderstanding about reality. If I clean the mirror, I will see the reality more clearly. If I see the reality more clearly, it will then impact my activities. I spoke to my father. My father's at an advanced age. And I spoke to my father. You had a conversation earlier this year where my father, he's sitting down. We're at his house, we're speaking, and he says to me, he says, old age is rubbish. That's what he said to me. He said, old age is rubbish. When we often talk about this idea that everyone acts as if they're going to live forever, it's again the same thing. I don't want to accept this reality of the body getting old. I don't like it. We have the material reality and the spiritual desire, and they are always in a tug of war. My spiritual desire is for my eternal nature, Satchit Ananda. Because I am eternal, I don't want to accept the reality of the body growing old and dying. Because I'm full of knowledge, I don't want to accept the reality of having the unknown. Because by nature the soul is full of Ananda, I don't want to accept the reality of depression, sadness, misery. Our problem, just like the man who lost his keys and was looking for it in the wrong place, our problem is that we are looking for spiritual desires to be fulfilled in a material world, in a material platform. And until we uproot that ignorant desire, that ignorant misunderstanding, we can't move forward. That is the problem of all humanity. And that is the problem that the pages of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam are able to resolve for us if we take full shelter of the medicine, if we become more expert in taking our medicine properly. So just as Uddhava is giving this transcendental wisdom, this message, this confidential message to Naranarayan Rishi, the sages of Bhadrakashram, we also actually are meant to engage in two missions. In the process of giving this transcendental knowledge to others, we are also transcendentally, simultaneously, if we do it sincerely, we are also passing this transcendental message into our own hearts more and more. The two missions take place simultaneously. The two missions take place, they take place in a very connected way. And by doing this, we will have that qualification to literally stop ourselves suffering. Again, we suffer because we hold on to misconceptions. We hold on. Let's give one very clear example. Not everyone experiences old age in the same way. Prabhupada, he was once examined by some medical specialists, and they told Prabhupada, they said that there's so many things wrong with your body. Prabhupada, there are so many things wrong with your body that you should be screaming in pain. They told Prabhupada that. But Prabhupada was never screaming in pain because he did not accept the bodily conception. He was above that. His consciousness was attuned above the bodily conception. I sometimes wonder, to be honest with you, how many devotees there are in our movement who, because of an attachment to holding on to bodily identification of race, bodily identification of gender, bodily identification of age, bodily identification of ethnicity or nationality. I sometimes wonder how many devotees there are in our movement who are holding on to various types of bodily identity, and they don't actually understand what they're preparing themselves to experience. Because the more I identify with my body, the more I will suffer from all the issues that go on with my body. So it's not like, yeah, I'm going to hold on to these identities, but it's okay. Nothing's going to happen to me. I think sometimes we don't fully appreciate that there's an implication to the identity. Therefore, not everyone experiences old age in the same way. Those practitioners in bhakti who are wise enough to let go of the bodily identity completely. That doesn't mean that you don't use your body in the world. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to relate to people in this world, but you know deep down, I'm actually not this vehicle. Those devotees who truly embrace that teaching, and it's a fundamental teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Dehi no sminyata dehi umranyovanam jara tata dehantara prapti dira tatra namuyate. Those devotees who are wise enough, and actually those devotees who are compassionate enough to themselves to not want to suffer more intensely old age, disease, death. Those devotees who love themselves enough not to set themselves up for more suffering, unnecessary suffering. Those devotees who love themselves enough not to identify with the material body, they won't experience old age in the same way. They will not be experiencing disease in the same way. And most importantly, they will not experience death in the same way. This is really crucial. Everything in Krishna consciousness has its implications. And if we don't realize it, and if we don't embrace it, then some of the difficulty that we could have avoided, some of the complications that we could have avoided, some of the challenges that we could have avoided by really taking this teaching to heart and living life by that book, we will avoid. And then when we don't avoid it because we didn't really give up the bodily identity, Prabhupada said, but but I still want to hold on to it. Okay, it's up to you. But when your body grows old, you'll notice that your friends who didn't hold on to that bodily identification, they've risen above it, but you held on to it. And because you held on to it, now you're holding on to everything that comes along with it. Everything that comes along with it. And at the time, and Krishna is in the heart saying, dude, why did you do that? I told you already, let go of your bodily identification. If you let it go, you won't have to suffer all the stuff that comes along the body. But you didn't listen. And you thought, no, I can do my own thing and still have all the benefits. No, it doesn't work like that. Again, misconception. So, in summary, knowledge comes ultimately from Krishna. Knowledge is important because that knowledge determines everything else. It determines identity, it determines action, it determines interaction. And the more that I truly embrace this higher knowledge, the more I remove every time I embrace a deep spiritual truth, every time I embrace that truth, I let go of not just a material misconception, but I let go of a whole paradigm of suffering that comes along with that material misconception. Okay, so we'll stop there and let's open up for any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, His Grace BHUTABHAVANA PRABHU. Lots of information. And I believe whoever is here listening would admit that this needs to be listened to again, which is something I will do. I will listen to this again because there is so much information loaded in this like 1 hour discourse. Actually, say 1 hour. So devotees, if you may have questions, reflections, realizations you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak or to share. Bhakta Hassan, please, you may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna, Your Grace, please kindly accept my respectful obeisances. All glory to Gurudev, all glory to Srila Prabhupada, and all glory to the wonderful assembled devotees. This is my second time of listening to you, and I want to thank you so much for the wonderful class. And I can see that a lot of information has been given, and I cannot digest all. And like His Grace Adi Prabhu said, I'll go back again and listen to it again. But one of the questions I want to ask, you do mention that we are looking for spiritual life in a material way. And if you can please explain that or throw more light on that, because already we are immaterial affected. That's why we are looking for the spiritual who we are. And it is also said that we don't have to be more spiritual and more material. We have to balance both of them. So already we are in this material mode, and we are looking for our spiritual being or our spiritual self. So if you say that we are looking for spiritual life in a material mode, material world, or a material way, can you explain it more further, please?
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I'll explain. So what I meant by that is, and I'm not necessarily even talking about devotees. Everyone in the world is looking for spiritual outcomes. I mean, I'll explain what I mean by that. Everyone in the world, if you ask them, would you like to live forever rather than die? Everyone will say, yes, I'd like to live forever. In other words, they're looking to be eternal. The desire for immortality is a spiritual desire that people are trying to get in the material world by trying to live as long as possible, have plastic surgery to stay as youthful as possible. So it's a spiritual desire. I want to be immortal, but they're looking for it by trying to adjust the material temporary body. So that's the first point. Second, everyone's looking for knowledge. What is the internet? The internet is, I want to have all this knowledge at my fingertips. So everyone's looking for great knowledge, chit, unlimited knowledge, but they're looking for it again in a material way. Let me have more, go on Google more. Let me have AI to answer me, right? And everyone is looking for happiness, not just happiness. They're looking for happiness that will keep going, you see? But they're looking for it in the wrong way. People want to take drugs. People want to take intoxication. Even now, I'm sure many of you will know, there's a famous musician or famous music star, and he's now in jail, and he's going to be on trial, and he was very, very popular, multi-millionaire, probably even close to being a billionaire. But what was he doing? If the reports are true, he was trying to get pleasure, but through mistreating people, exploiting people, assaulting people, you see? So everyone wants the spiritual outcomes. Everyone wants to live forever. Everyone wants to be full of knowledge. Everyone wants to be happy all the time. But they're trying to get it through matter. They're trying to get it through material interaction. And that's wrong, because you can't get an eternal outcome from something temporary. That's what we're saying. So Prabhupada gave a very wonderful statement. He says, if we give up the temporary for the eternal, there's no loss, because the temporary was going to leave us anyway, and we've gained something that's going to last forever. He said, however, if we give up the eternal for the temporary, we've lost everything, because I've given up something temporary. I've given up something eternal to get something that's temporary. But now that I've got the temporary thing, because it's temporary, it's going to leave me anyway. Right? So I've lost everything. So this is actually the point that I was making about that. Now, there's one other point which you've touched upon. I'm just going to switch the light on because it's quite dark in my room. Give me 1 second. Now, there's one other point that you mentioned, which I did actually want to touch on. And that is, even as devotees, we sometimes forget how to live a spiritual life, a spiritually progressive life while we're in this world. One of the things that I've seen in my own life and in the life of people around me is that we have to learn to integrate the social needs in a way that's spiritually progressive, which is something you touched upon, Dr. Hassan. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is very simple. We're meant to practice Sanatana Dharma, which is Krishna consciousness, and we're meant to practice the social way that we live, but in ways which are favorable to our spiritual progress. What I've seen is that many of the challenges that we face as devotees is not coming directly from Krishna conscious practices. It's coming from the way that we've arranged our social obligations. And often what we've done is we've arranged our social obligations without taking into account our spiritual goal. I'll give a very simple example. Sometimes, I was listening to a class by my spiritual master. He talked about this, and I can send the clip. I shared it on a few forums. But he was saying, for example, when devotees choose to get married, sometimes because of not understanding the teachings deeply, we think, I'm a devotee, therefore anyone else who's a devotee, I can marry them and everything will be fine. And he said, it's not true, right? He said, it's actually not true. He said that when we're getting married, we have to understand that we have a certain way that we show up in this world. So even though we're both devotees, and we can see that if we look in our communities, there are many different devotees and they all behave different ways. So when we're trying to get married, we're meant to find someone who's a devotee, yes, but someone who's a devotee who also in their character is compatible with our character. And if we don't do that, then what happens is, then we have troubles in our married life. And because we have so many troubles in our married life, it makes it harder for us to stay enthusiastic on trying to make progress in Krishna consciousness. You see? Or someone wants to get a job. Yes, we have to pay the bills, no problem. But then the person gets a job where they're working 14, 15 hours a day. And because they're working 14, 15 hours a day, they're so exhausted, they're so tired that now they've got no time for their sadhana. And then they'll turn around and say, oh, but why is Krishna not helping me? No, Krishna didn't tell you to work for a 15-hour-a-day job. In fact, what does the scripture say? The scripture often talks about things in terms of principle. It says you should accept what's favorable and you should reject what's unfavorable. You see? But we don't take that rule into account when we are organizing our social life. We don't take that rule into account when we're choosing who to marry. We don't take that rule into account when we're thinking about how we can look after our physical health. We think, I chant and everything else I can do whatever I like. I can do whatever I like. I can do it how I like. And if it goes wrong, it's Krishna's fault because, I'm chanting. Why aren't you helping me? And Krishna's like, dude, I tried to help you by telling you to arrange the other areas of your life in a way that's favorable, but you didn't listen to that instruction. You see? And that's why by not listening to that instruction, you've opened the door to other challenges in your life. And those challenges are challenges that could have been avoided had you thought, okay, my job or my family, whatever it is, how do I choose that also in a way that is favorable for my goal of becoming Krishna conscious? Does that answer your question, Bhakta Hassan?
Very, 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 very much. Very much. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'll have to go back and watch it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
Hare Krishna. And thank you for coming again.
Yeah. That's the devotional power of Sahadev Prabhu.
No,
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
I am Mr. Nobody.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, thank you. Like Bhakta Hassan is saying, I have a question.
Yes.
And it is not a new question. It's an age-old question. And I have had answers to the question, but it's still a question that bothers me. And that is, if someone doesn't know that he is in ignorance, or we're talking about ignorance today. If someone doesn't know he is in ignorance, He is very much convinced of whatever he's saying or doing. But when he receives higher knowledge, he recognizes that, in fact, what I thought was not the right answer, was not the right way. And therefore, that person can change. Now, there is another person who is not in ignorance. He knows that this thing is poison. It can kill me. Yet, even though he claims to love his life, he still goes ahead and engages in this particular lifestyle, which eventually kills him. Like, people know that hard drugs are very dangerous. It can kill them. But somehow they get hooked up and they're unable to give them up. And they keep doing it. And there are some of us who, by Guru mercy, Krishna's mercy, devotee's mercy, or whatever the mercy is coming from, we've come in contact with this wonderful knowledge. We know what is to be done, what is not to be done. Yet, we choose to do what is not to be done. What makes us know the right thing, yet do the wrong things?
It's one thing, very simply, it's attachment. So the Vedic understanding of knowledge is not the same as the modern understanding of knowledge. If the Vedic understanding of actual knowledge is that you have it such deeply within your heart that you act on it. So what we would say is, if we use a more kind of external term, they have information, right? They have an understanding, an intellectual understanding at best, but they haven't realized it. And because they haven't realized it, realized knowledge means the knowledge that you live, that you embody, you see? And so in Vedic culture, it's a very, very different culture. So when they talk about knowledge or ignorance, ignorance means that even if you know something theoretically, but you do the wrong thing, you're still in ignorance.
Yes.
It's only when you have it so deeply within you that you act on it consistently, then you're considered to be one who's in knowledge. And so Krishna makes this point, Bahunam Jamanamante, Gyanavamam Prapadyate, Vasudeva Savamiti, Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. He says, after many lifetimes of cultivating knowledge, he says that, many lifetimes of cultivating knowledge, one comes to understand Vasudeva Savamiti, that Krishna, Vasudeva is everything. Then he says, Sa Mahatma, such a great soul, Sudurlabhaha, is very rare. You see? So as we said earlier, actually, what we do, how we live, that shows how much realization, how much realized knowledge we have. Vigyan, right? V is an intensifier. It means very, highly. So highly realized, highly understood, deeply understood. Vigyan. When it's deeply understood, I live it. If I understand it theoretically, but I've not had it so deeply within me that I can live it, it's still considered I'm in ignorance. So I've got the information, and you see that sometimes people, even people of Indian origin, yeah, I know about Krishna, I know about Bhagavad Gita. Okay, but you eat meat. That means you don't know, right? You're still engaging in just a material conception of life. That means you don't know. Again, even us as devotees, there's different degrees of realization. And going back to the example we gave before, yes, I know I'm not the body. Yeah, but your whole life is the way you live your life shows that you haven't realized it. Right? The way you talk shows you haven't realized it. The fact that you give all the attention to the body and don't do very much for your spiritual nourishment, it means you haven't realized it. Because if you truly realize that you're not the body, you would give more nourishment to what you truly are. You know? So therefore, even as practicing devotees, we can be in a state of denial. I'm in denial. So I accept something superficially. The analogy that flashed in my mind at the beginning of this class, which I didn't go into, but I would like to share with you, is the analogy of the ocean. When it comes to spiritual knowledge, some of us, and it's also not a criticism, in the beginning stages, we're swimming on the surface of the ocean because we're still beginners. when Uddhava is being mentioned here, when Prabhupada is talking about the importance of association and hearing from pure devotees, what does a pure devotee do? The pure devotee, first of all, he tells you to get in the ocean of transcendental knowledge. So we're on the dry earth of material life, right? And we're starving, we're thirsty, we're being scorched by the forest fire of material existence. The pure devotee says, get into this. It says, if you don't get into the ocean, you're going to be burned by this forest fire of material existence. Get into the ocean. You'll be safe from the fire there. So first we get into the ocean. But now we're in the ocean, but we're still swimming on the surface of the ocean. Oh, it's better. It's not, and it's still a relief. Wow. I was burning. I was so hot. I was scorched. But now I'm in the ocean. I feel this cooling experience. Wow. Oh my God. It's such a contrast to before. I'm getting this. My skin feels cool now. That's amazing. There's so much relief. But it's relief, but I'm still surfing on the surface of the ocean. The next thing the pure devotee starts to teach me, I'm going to teach you how to swim underwater, right? We'll stay on the surface, but I'm going to teach you how to swim underwater. You can hold your breath for a few minutes. But eventually, what is that pure devotee going to do? Eventually, he's going to take each and every one of us deep sea diving. And he's going to show us, yes, you think the ocean's good. Wait till you see what's right down in the depths of the ocean, right? In the depths of many oceans, there's actually precious stones, right? Which sometimes, explorers find at the deepest depths of the ocean, but you can't just go down there straight away. You have to be prepared. You have to be trained to be able to go down there. You have to be trained to be able to hold your breath for a good period of time so you can spend some time down there and look, and you can actually start to see, wow, I thought it was good at the surface, but when I start to go in, I understand there's so much more to see, so much more to understand, so much more to experience. So this transcendental knowledge, the pure devotee takes us into this deeper, more confidential understanding. And the journey of Krishna consciousness is that journey of coming to the deepest realizations of Krishna consciousness. And those deepest realizations are the deepest realizations of tasting divine love for Krishna. And that process is learning to swim in the ocean of bhakti, learning to swim in the ocean of offering or rendering service so that I can experience the deepest realizations of that service, which is love of Krishna.
Wow. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. In fact, wow, beautiful. But as you were speaking, sharing this wonderful wisdom and giving the ocean as a very clear analogy, then I was also thinking about sometimes I watch some videos on YouTube where they play like very soothing music with very beautiful landscape or sometimes the ocean. Mm-hmm. And when they show the ocean bed, you realize, wow, I mean, the beach is beautiful, but deep down the ocean is actually much more beautiful.
Yes.
Now we have this experienced diver who is training us, the beginners, to get on the shore and also finally get us into deep diving. And then you standing outside, seeing this experienced diver training people. And then this diver himself, experienced diver himself, pushes someone under the water and then holds him there for a long time, not to train him, but to actually to kill him. Now, if you found a diver training people and doing such things, it's definitely going to frighten you to go to such a person for training.
Yeah.
But you also know that the person has the tools, has the knowledge, has the experience to train people to become divers. And you want to become a diver. In this situation, what do you do? Do you go to that same person, or you have to find another person who probably has the same caliber of such a diver because you've seen him submerge somebody in the ocean and deliberately killed that individual? What do we do?
Yeah, if he's killing the individual, if he's suffocating them, he's not a trained diver.
Okay.
He's not a trained diver. So the point is there's symptoms and signs of a trained diver.
Mm. So
if the person doesn't know how to swim themselves, if they don't know how to teach you to swim, if they are taking people in the ocean and then causing them to drown, it means that they are not trained divers themselves. A trained diver will never cause anyone to suffer or suffocate. A sign of a trained diver is that to the extent that you follow their instruction, to that extent, things go very, very, very well for you. Yeah. Now, it is actually, we're going to make this a little bit more complicated. It is actually the case that sometimes a trained diver takes people out to swim, and some of those people drown, but they only drown if they don't follow the instructions of the trained diver. So in every situation, we have to consider, this is really important. I was speaking to someone who wanted to get initiated, and normally in our institution, they always talk about who they want to get initiated by and how this person's so wonderful and they smiled at me and this and that. And it's wonderful that they have that desire to be initiated. And we often advise them, first of all, you need to know, is this person, you have to check, is this person someone who's definitely going to be able to guide you back to Godhead? So what's their qualification? What we don't talk about so much, right? So we talk about the qualification of the teacher. Are they guru? Are they qualified, etc.? Good, important. What we don't talk about so much is, what is our qualification? Am I actually a qualified student? Because you can have the best teacher in the world. If you're no good at studying, you're actually not going to be able to take advantage of what the teacher has to give. You see? So part of this is not just, is that you have to be able to check, is this person a qualified diver? Yes, that's important. And then also, am I a qualified student? Yeah. So sometimes the students drown, not because the diver isn't qualified. Sometimes the students drown because the students aren't qualified.
Wow. It's amazing. Each time you answer a question, it's like a parachute. It opens up because it brings me back. This is not a question. It brings me back to what you were saying earlier on, that like sometimes a devotee wants to get married, and obviously we want to get married to a devotee, but that is not enough.
Yes.
We have to look at the compatibilities. So even getting a diver, we should assess ourselves and also assess the diver.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then there is a potential of having some difficulty somewhere. I didn't think about it that way, but I think this is the beauty of studying or listening to Bhagavatam in association of devotees. Because what you think you know, you understand on your own, which you also indicated at the beginning of your deliberation, that we think we know we're not ready to listen to someone else, but you listen to other people share, SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM especially, and you learn something new all the time. It's like we talk about Krishna Janmashtami every year, yet every year there is something new. It's amazing, you know. Well, our NDA devotees, if anyone has something to ask or to share, please, you may do so.
I'll just add something to what you said, Sadhu, because I think this is really important. This is something that keeps coming up in my own understanding. Then we'll go to Varaha Prabhu. Good to see you, Prabhu. And that is that oftentimes what I've seen, and I've been speaking about this a lot, and our spiritual master would speak about this a lot. See, we have such a great philosophy. The issue that we have as devotees is our application of it.
Yeah.
We think we're applying it really, really well, but we may not be applying it as well as we think that we are. For example, to your point about when we hear in the association, the scripture itself says it's meant to be heard in the association of devotees. So someone can say, oh, I don't hear in the association, but I do read Bhagavatam. But the Bhagavatam says that you should read in the association of devotees.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if someone says, I'm following the Bhagavatam, but then at the same time, I'm not doing what the Bhagavatam says I should be doing, then how are you following the Bhagavatam? You see?
Yeah.
It's like that. So someone says, I'm doing what my doctor advised me to do. Okay, what did your doctor advise you to do? He told me to take this medicine. Okay, so you're taking the medicine. No, I'm not taking the medicine, but I do listen to my doctor. Okay, but what do you mean you listen to? Oh, I listen to my doctor. I respect my doctor, right? I listened to everything that he said. I made notes. What did he say? He said I should take this medicine. Are you taking the medicine? No, I don't take the medicine, but I do listen to my doctor.
Yeah.
And then what happens as a result is, because the Bhagavatam and the teachings are they're alive. The teachings are actually alive. If I'm sincere and I do exactly what they're telling me, they reveal even more. Like you said, you learn more and more. So the teachings will then give me more insight. This is how you practice Krishna consciousness in this area of your life. This is how you practice Krishna consciousness in this area of your life. For example, in first canto Bhagavatam, chapter 19, text number 12, it said, and our Guru Maharaj spoke about this a lot. It said, Prabhupada writes, every major decision, and Prabhupada writes in that purport, should be confirmed by some authority. I've seen in my life, I mean, it's been amazing. So many times in my life where I had to make a major decision because I followed that instruction that Prabhupada gave in the Bhagavatam. And even though I had an idea of what to do, I wouldn't just take it. Well, I've got my own idea. I don't care what anyone thinks. I would still speak to my god brothers, god sisters, Shiksha Guru, Gurudev. And when I would inquire from them, this is what I'm thinking to do, they would give me some fantastic insight that completely changed the way that I saw things, because I don't see everything, right? I've got a plan, but I may have missed something. I was on a retreat. This is after Guru Maharaj left the planet. I was on a retreat with His Holiness Chandramuli Maharaj. At the end of the retreat, I paid obeisances to Maharaj, and I said, and before I left, I said, Maharaj, is there any final instructions for me? And you know what he did? He told me something about my character. He told me something about my character that I wasn't even conscious of. And he gave me some instructions. He said, BHUTABHAVANA, you're this kind of person. Because you're this kind of person, you need to make sure that you do this. What he told me was something that my Guru Maharaj had also alluded to. What he told me was something that I'd heard in a general instruction from Radha Maharaj. Isn't that amazing? And then I'll be honest, I started to notice, I thought, wow, what's happening to the devotees in our communities? I saw that one of the ways in which Maya just slaps the devotee, slaps them, is that they'll get the devotee to make major life decisions without consulting anyone. You see? So all these major life decisions we're going to make, and we're talking about spiritual community, we talk about the Goloka Vrindavan and how everyone's in concert with Krishna, we talk about mentoring from spiritual authorities, and then amazingly, we talk about all this, and then when devotees are making major life decisions, they make it by themselves without asking anyone. Even worse, there's another layer to this. What that tells me is that they didn't trust those other devotees who they were around already. Because if you trusted them, then you could ask. If you don't trust, if we have superficial relationships, I go to the festival, oh, Haribol Prabhu, how are you? Oh, Haribol, how are you? Oh, I'm good, Haribol, how are you? But then I don't trust anyone. And the sign that I don't trust anyone is whenever there are major decisions to be made, I make it in isolation. And that is how Maya is making the life of most of the devotees in our movement very, very difficult. Because when they go through struggles, they don't necessarily inquire. And before they make major decisions, they don't inquire. I personally really believe that if we all as devotees, whenever we're making even minor decisions, but especially major decisions, if we had already established deep relationships of trust with other devotees, and they're qualified. Relationships of trust is a deep thing, by the way, because to trust them in what way? Some devotees you can trust that they're well-intentioned, but they don't necessarily have so much knowledge or insight. Other devotees, they may have knowledge, but they're not necessarily so well-intentioned, actually. What you need is the trust has to be based upon something real. That means, what does that imply? It implies that I myself, I've gone to the trouble of trying to understand what to look for in the devotees to associate with. It means I've done the work. It's like a doctor. I want to save your child. Your child's ill. I want to save your child, but I can't be bothered to learn medicine. Are you going to give me your child to look after? No way. You can say, that's nice that you want to say, it's a nice sentiment, but you've not done the work to qualify yourself to be able to help the child. So this is the point. Often we do things in isolation, and therefore Maya is able to take us out and make our lives much harder than it should be. And then we think, oh, this Krishna consciousness is so difficult. No, I don't believe it. I often think it's not that the Krishna consciousness is difficult. It's that because I've misapplied the teaching, I don't know how to apply the teaching properly. I don't know that I don't know, and I don't check. Therefore, I myself have made my spiritual life more difficult, and then I'm blaming Krishna.
I think the bottom line is that's what you said. We don't know that we don't know. Shrimara Prabhu, are you still there? Do you have something to add to or ask? I saw your hand up earlier on.
I think Varaha Prabhu's hand was up.
Yeah, is the one I'm calling.
Oh, yes.
Yes, please give me unmute, Shrimara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Please, Ashama obeisances BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much for your nice discourse. In the course of your discourse, you said something like, well, you dwell a lot about knowledge and the importance of knowledge. And you also said something at some point that knowledge is actually everything. And you also broke that into some details, very nice ones. My question is twofold. One is that sometimes we say that knowledge is required, but it's actually not a prerequisite for back.
Yes.
But again, when you analyze the importance of knowledge, it actually looks like knowledge is the basis of everything. And well, like, especially when you were talking about Gyan, realized knowledge, then you, anyway, I don't want to make this question long and complex. But I believe that knowledge plays an important role, but that there are different levels of knowledge acquiring.
Yes.
Or acquisition of knowledge.
Yes.
Which leads to transformation.
Yes.
So please, can you reconcile the fact that knowledge is important and at the same time it's not prerequisite for back?
Thank you very much. It's a great question, and thank you for sharing this. I heard a class decades ago, and it was such an empowering point that was made. To show how these things reconcile. For all areas of endeavor, we have to have some kind of knowledge, but that knowledge actually is based upon the quality of our hearts. Going back to the example I gave before, if I want to enjoy someone of the opposite sex, in order to enjoy that person, I've got to accept or hold on to a certain idea of them, right? That it's okay, I deserve it, after all, they're there just for my enjoyment, etc. If I don't hold on to that, I can't enjoy it. If I deeply realize they're not meant for my enjoyment, they're meant for Krishna's service, I can't enjoy them anymore. You see? So when I talk about knowledge, the knowledge can come from outside into me through scripture, but the knowledge also can come inside. Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yemamam upayanti te. Krishna says, and this is where the reconciliation happens. Krishna says, by those who surrender unto me, if you surrender, he says, I then give you the knowledge by which you can come to me. You see? So knowledge can come from outside. Knowledge can also come from inside if someone is sincerely trying to serve Krishna. And then Krishna also says, Savasya chaham ridishanivishto matasmriti jnanam apohanam cha. He says, even that knowledge that's coming from inside, I can also cover it from you. Right? He says, I can give knowledge, I can give remembrance, and I can give forgetfulness as well. So what does it mean? It means deep down, at the deepest level, it's all about my desire. If I really want to know Krishna and I really want to come closer to him, he'll facilitate that because I deep down really want it. If I've done devotional service in the previous life, because I wanted to know him in the previous life, if I come into this life and I don't want to know him, but I've done service before, I've got this agyata sukriti, this devotional credit, and therefore he'll still give me knowledge because you did something for me before. If I come into this life and I don't want to do anything about Krishna, but Sahadev or other devotees say, look, Krishna, I want to bless this person. I know they don't want to know about you, but I want them to know about you. Then Krishna was like, okay, you want them to know, even though I know they don't want to know about me, but because you want them to know about me, you're going to approach them and tell them about Krishna consciousness, about Bhagavad Gita. So actually, there's more than one thing going on. And Prabhupada in the purport, he mentions about the importance of grace. You see? And that's also mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini. He says the partiality of a devotee is not to be considered a fault. Now, if you want to get even deeper into it, the more pure someone is, the more that they can awaken someone, even if that person has less inclination to know. You see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about this. Someone who's at prema, they can give prema to anyone, right? Someone who's at a lower level, they can bring people up to the level that they are on. So ultimately, if we take this point about Tesham Satata Yuktanam, we know that the ultimate thing is surrender, right? But it's one way that knowledge comes because the person surrenders. Another way that knowledge comes, even if a person isn't surrendered, is that a pure devotee who's so powerful wants to bless those people. So Prabhupada, what did Prabhupada say? Prabhupada was told by his disciples, they said, Prabhupada, we've read in the scripture the one who comes to the point of chanting Hare Krishna, they must have bathed in all the holy rivers, done all these different sacrifices, etc. They said to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, we don't feel that we did any of these things. And Prabhupada said, I am your devotional credits. Meaning that if someone is a billionaire, you're poor. You have no wealth. But he's a billionaire. It doesn't matter to him. He can still make you a millionaire. All you have to do is be ready to accept what he has to offer you. So knowledge can come because of my surrender. Or I'm not surrendered, but knowledge can come from someone who's very surrendered to Krishna who wants to bless me. Or knowledge can come because I'm curious. Shata vida brijante mam, jnana sukritina arjuna, right? Because of those who come out of curiosity, those who come out of knowledge. You see? It can come from more than one way. So in some cases, our devotional service began because we gained the knowledge. In some other situations, our devotional service began because we served the pure devotee. In some cases, our devotional service began because a pure devotee wanted to bless us. It can come in more than one way. That's the conclusion. So it's not either or, it's both and. Both, more than one opportunity can cause us to move in the right direction in spiritual life. And that's how they're reconciled. Varahad, I'm just checking in. Does that make sense to you, first of all?
Yes. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. But I also said something about. Sorry, I'm in the traffic, so there must be noise at the background.
Okay.
I also mentioned about different levels of knowledge acquisition,
Yes.
which leads to realization or transformation.
Yes.
But some of this level of knowledge acquisition, which leads to begin, are not actually encouraged in the process of Krishna consciousness. Philosophically speaking, might be correct, but in practice, it's a big question. That is, I mean, like in between in between Dhyan and Bhakti, there's so many processes of other yoga processes. Buddha yoga, Sankhya yoga, yes, Sankhya yoga, especially Sankhya yoga, which is known as metaphysics. And this gives a kind of result experiences, which also adds a lot to realization. But our philosophy is that you don't need all these things once you are on the path of Bhakti.
Yeah.
But what we notice is that many people are on the path of Bhakti philosophically because they are not enjoying the movement. But they actually lack a lot of experiences, spiritual experiences. And at the end, we find that they are still acting on the material level because their realized knowledge is very, very little or nil.
Yeah.
So this is my doubt that can we actually downplay the importance of knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge, in order to have realized knowledge? Can we really downplay that? And how much that can contribute to our spiritual advancement? So I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I think I do.
I hope I'm not making it complex.
No, I think I do.
Okay.
So I'll just say something to it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna
Right.
says, Yoginam api sham. Because all the
Yeah.
yogis, those who worship me with great faith, he says they are uttama. So you are right. When there's different ways in which the Shastra talks about Gyan. When I'm speaking about Gyan, I'm speaking only about transcendental knowledge that leads to bhakti. Yeah, I'm not, but by Gyan, when I'm saying Gyan, I don't mean knowledge of impersonalism. I don't mean knowledge of yoga siddhis. I'm not talking about any of those kinds of knowledge. I'm talking here about, because we're reading the Bhagavatam, I'm talking only about the devotional knowledge. Now, that devotional knowledge, not only does it give you understanding, but that devotional knowledge directly purifies you. Yep. So again, as we mentioned, this Nasta Preshu or Badre Shu, if you regularly come in contact with transcendental knowledge, it destroys all the anatas in the heart. Yep. So to your point about why sometimes people come but they fail or they leave, it can actually be, as you said, because there's some level of realization, but it may not have been strong enough. That's one thing. Second, there's some desire for Krishna. Everyone has every devotee has some desire for Krishna. The issue isn't that. The issue is it stronger than the desires for things which are not Krishna conscious? You see? So we all know this experience. You want to do well in your exam, okay? So I've got a desire to do well in my exam, but I've also got a desire to hang out with my friends and just party. So what's going to happen? You can't say that this person has no desire to do well in these exams. They want to do well. But if their desire to hang out with their friends and party is stronger than the desire to do well in their exams, they're going to fail their exams. And you can't say they didn't have a desire to do well. It's just the desire wasn't strong enough compared to the other things that they wanted. That's the reason. So one more reason why people sometimes leave Krishna consciousness, actually our spiritual master spoke about this as well, is because it offenses. So it's not even that they didn't have a desire, but because they made an offense, their spiritual desires became weaker and their material desires became stronger and overwhelmed them. Like that. So again, when I'm talking about Gyan and Vigyan, I'm talking only about that knowledge and transcendental realization directly related to bhakti, not mundane Gyan, not even other processes within the Veda.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very good. Thank you.
Question.
Hope to see you more again.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Mitravinda, David, do you still have something to ask or share? I saw your hand up. Mitravinda, David, are you still here? Yeah.
She's on, but I don't know if I can see her.
Yeah, she's
Hare
still
Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Mitra.
Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for a while, so I gotta regroup for a second. First of all, I want to say thank you, BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu, for being here and speaking. It's such a rare treat that I hope will not continue to be rare. That's a message for our dear Sahadev Prabhu. And hopefully you will put this magnificent platform for sharing Krishna consciousness on your schedule.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. there were so many wonderful concepts, nuggets of information, aspects of inspiration. I don't know which to choose. I wanted to say, I will say just briefly though, that the aspect of revealing one's mind in confidence regarding having enough trust to seek out the advice of those who are acting in a Vaishnava perspective, generally who have lessened their desire or goals or imperfections that harm others, it is a tricky thing.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that you will elaborate on that, because it's not just us on here, because the videos go out to other people who are new to Krishna consciousness. And it's often spoke of that we should reveal our mind in confidence, and lots of other wonderful things that relate to Krishna consciousness, right? On the other hand, we are all imperfect at our different levels and stages, and it can be extremely dangerous to reveal one's mind and confidence to someone who doesn't know what that means or has not attached properly to the process. So I wanted to put that out there as a caveat to seeking others to make decisions, because that's communal, that's etiquette, that's culture, but it can be very dangerous as well. And then on the other end, when one does seek out others to make decisions, whether it be to buy a new car or get a house, or get a divorce or get married or decide to have children, whatever that may be, really feel it's very important to seek someone who has done that thing successfully as well, or at least in a way that shows progression in the path of bhakti, and that their families are happy. But please give some insight, just to make it shorter, on that revealing the mind and confidence.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you, Prabhu.
No, thank you for a great point. This is something I think about this a lot, and it's something to really clarify. There's a few factors that I've seen are really important. A few factors. First of all, there's I can't remember the Sanskrit term. Well, actually, we can give a better example. Yasya Devi Parabhakti, right? So it's explained, for one who has implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, all the imports of the scriptures are revealed. That means it's not just the statement of the scriptures, it's what's imported or implied by the statements are also important. So to your first point, actually, as long as we're not perfect, we will make mistakes. So that mean, and at the same time, we're told by Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami, have loving exchanges, reveal the mind. So if I know that I'm dealing with others who are on the path, if I know that I'm not perfect, therefore I may make mistakes, I also have to be ready for the fact that they may not be perfect and they may make mistakes, even if they're well-intentioned. So the first thing actually is to have a forgiving mood. If I've already understood, I'm going to go out to get help or to reveal the mind, and there'll be many cases it will work. There'll be sometimes undoubtedly where I may be disappointed, undoubtedly. So the first thing, in order to be in community, in order to be in relationship, I actually have to be forgiving. I have to also be expert. I have to try my best to find the right person or right persons to reveal the mind to. Okay, so that's the point. And they don't have to always be perfect. They have to be progressive. Meaning that, as you said, we all have at different stages. They have to be progressive. They have to be someone who has my best interests at heart. And then even if that person who's got my best interests at heart sometimes makes a mistake, but I know it's coming from a good place, it's easier to actually keep that relationship strong, and it's easier to also give them feedback. I know I shared this with you in confidence. I was a bit surprised that you said this or that you did this. I spoke to our spiritual master about this once. And he said that what we should do is, if someone lets us down or disappoints us, we should also consider, is there something that we did wrong? And then what you do is you go before them and say, in this, I was expecting you to do this in this situation, but you did this. And I was a bit surprised. Could you please help me to understand why you did this instead of this? So I seek first to understand, because also there's sometimes people's behavior can also be due to their own different experiences. We know this culturally. We know this culturally. In some cultures, there are no secrets, you know? And so in that culture, it's like, you know, what do you mean? It's like we just tell everyone everything. That's our cultural upbringing. And they're devotees, but they're devotees who grew up in that social culture. So our social culture, acculturation also has an impact. You know, in African culture, people are more communal, right? So we'll say hello to the neighbors and stuff like that. Now, many of you live in the West. In the West, they're not like that, right? So some of the things that we do automatically are due to our social conditioning. But yes, you are right. We have to learn to be forgiving. We have to try to be expert in who we reveal our minds to, but we should have at least one person. If I really think that there's absolutely no one in my entire global community that I can reveal my mind to, who can be trusted, it's not an issue with the community, it's an issue with me, right? It means that, you know, there's so many people and you don't trust any of them. You think all of them are untrustworthy. No, that's not an issue of the community. It means you have some trust issue. I'm talking about myself if I think like that, or anyone who thinks like that. So forgiveness has to be there, because sometimes people will do things different to what we expect. Expertise has to be there, because we should try to find qualified people. So it's not just a question of trusting devotees. It's a question of being able to see which devotees are actually trustworthy, right? And actually, interestingly enough, this sounds strange, but I'm going to say it. Every single devotee is trustworthy, but in certain areas at least. So where did this come from? In Spiritual Warrior 2, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj writes this. He says, you can trust a thief in your own home as long as you lock away your valuables. And that's a very, very powerful statement. Right? What does that mean? It means, and we all know this. There's some devotees, if you ask them for advice about chanting, they will give you great advice. But if you go into business with them, that's the weakness they have is greed, money. You know, they're wonderful as a friend, but if you go into business with them, suddenly another side of them comes out, which is more cutthroat, right? There are some devotees, if you do Sankirtan with them, absolutely wonderful, right? But they're not, but when it comes to being more soft and empathetic, you know, a relative of yours passed away, they're not so good at being very kind and very empathetic. So the reality is that things are more sophisticated. They're not so black and white. It's not I can and I can't trust them. No, actually, if we look at it in reality, you can trust this devotee in these areas. They're very good here. But when it comes to this, they may not be so expert. They may not be able to reciprocate, you know? So it's not whether I can or can't trust. It's I want to understand each devotee I'm interacting with to see where can we get the nectar with that person, you know? And therefore I look to see where I can get the nectar. And if there are things which are not so nectarian, because I've not been sentimental, because I didn't just jump into blind trust. I built the relationship over time. You see, that's one of the most important things. I've learned to develop the relationship, and in developing the relationship over time, I've had a real and honest ability to appraise and see, oh, this is what they're like, and this is how I can relate to them. You see, what happens often when devotees have issues with trust or are let down is often because Krishna showed us some red flags. He showed us some signs, watch out for this, and we ignored the signs. You see, we ignored the signs. Now, we can also say, if we did our best and it still didn't work out in some major way, we can still consider there was something for me to learn from that situation. I'll share with you something that I've been doing recently, and it was really useful. I did an exercise in my own devotional life, and I thought about one particular devotee who I had a real challenge with. And I was thinking about it by understanding that there are no accidents. And what I did is I tried to mentally make a list. What were the lessons from interacting with this devotee? And there were so many amazing lessons. This was a devotee who was antagonistic, but I could see that there were so many qualities that this devotee had that I could learn from, you know? So beyond everything is Krishna's hand. That doesn't mean that bad experiences were caused by Krishna. No, right? We have karma, but Krishna allowed that karma to play out in such a way that because we're devotees, if we're following properly, my Guru Maharaj said this, if we're following properly, then even our karma, Krishna allows it to play out in such a way that we can still learn lessons from it, which will help us to move forward on the path of devotion. You see? That's my so I was looking at this particular devotee and I was realizing if I list all the things, even though their behavior wasn't always so good, why was I exposed to their behavior? What can I learn from their example? And there were many things, many things. And I was thinking in a future class to give that as an exercise for the devotees. Write down the name of a devotee that you struggle with. And then list what are all the things I can learn from the way that this devotee shows up in the world, and the way that this devotee practices spiritual life, the way that this devotee engages in different activities. And you'll see there are no accidents. Even that person who gives us a hard time, there are so many amazing things that we can learn from them. If we approach the world from the Krishna conscious or transcendental perspective. The danger is if we don't keep reading and hearing subtly, we'll start to go back into our conditioned way of seeing the world, which becomes friends, enemy, duality. There's no God in charge. I have to look after myself because no one's going to look after me. I have to fight, survive lessons that Krishna's trying to share. I hope that answers your question, Mitravinda. Okay, maybe she's gone.
Amazingly so. Yes, that was actually more than what I was looking for, but extremely beneficial, I'm sure, to everyone there, but in particular to myself. I definitely am able to see the direction you have gone in, and the exercise giving, and the notes on specifics of relationships is what you've shared, and I really do appreciate it. I think if we all had the opportunity to think this way in difficult situations, everything works out. So this is very beneficial, Prabhu. Thank you so very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Because I'll just add to what you're saying, because I'm a slow person myself. I find that because I'm so lacking in expertise, rather than waiting for the difficult situation to arise, I have to practice this mentality early. I find that if I practice this mentality generally, then when those difficult situations arise, I already built the capacity and the mindset, the habits, tendency to deal with it. And then adding to the point about forgiving others, because people, to err is human. I also remember something that Gurudev said about forgiveness. He said, we want to forgive others because we want to be forgiven for our own mistakes. So one of the things that helped to empower me to try and develop that is to understand that I make mistakes as well. And if I cultivate a forgiving mood, Krishna will be pleased with that, and that will help me move forward. But if I don't, what will happen is I will be telling Krishna in my own life, I make mistakes, forgive me. But he'll look and see, well, you want forgiveness from others, but you don't do that yourself. So it then becomes like, well, BBD, it's a bit hypocritical. So I'm trying to work on that for myself, because I want to be in the world while I would like to receive in the world as well. So I'm trying to think of it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Great to see you.
Said Hare Krishna. They're looking forward to when you come here to speak.
Who said that?
Madhavacharya Kunti.
Oh, you're with them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Looking forward. We will definitely come and visit them next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. Myself, we send our love.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thakur Murari Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Thakur.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, and please accept my humble obeisances to go all girls to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful presentation. I was listening here and wondering what question I was going to ask, but then I realized you have been answering the question that I would want to ask. And so thanks for sharing as usual. And this is nectar, and we have to find a way of, when we say churn the nectar some more, really sweet. So as a reminder, yes, in terms of a point. I was thinking, as you said, that if you can't find a person in this global community to have the trust, then surely something wrong with you. And I was saying yes. Even before you said that, I'm saying yes. With so many different personalities. Surely you go to your mechanic, you go to your barber, you go to your doctor, you go to other persons, and you share some stuff. So why is it difficult to share, in our community? So thanks for reminding us. And I think it started us. So thanks again. Many thanks. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. See, for
Hare
me,
Krishna.
Yeah.
when I find like if I find that I can't trust someone, if I find I can't trust anyone, if we as devotees are a bit introspective, that should alert us to something's going on about ourselves, you know? Because it's like such a global community. There's no one at all that you can find. It means it's not an issue with the community. It means it's an issue within myself, you know? And that's that these reflections, they can be very, very powerful because they can help us think, oh, that means it's not a community issue. It means I have a trust issue myself that I need to look within myself to resolve. And the moment I resolve it, or to the extent that I resolve it within myself, I'll find it'll be much easier to be very open and honest with other people. You know, so there's many things that we tell ourselves which are not necessarily actually true, but especially when we start to speak and discuss and reflect, we start to learn, oh, hold on, it's not them, it's me, it's my projection.
Well, thank you so much, as always. Well, says we have to be, I think Gurudev also said this, that we have to be very careful and mindful of our own pregnancy, because if you're pregnant, you're trying to hide it, but eventually it will reveal.
Yes.
And people will see. And jumping from one place to another, thinking that you are dodging the problem, but if you are the problem carrier, then how are you going to dodge the problem? So, but Hassan, please, Prabhuji, can you still give us a couple more minutes because we have one hand up?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. But Hassan, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, your grace once again. I want to thank you so much for the wonderful class, and I pray to Krishna to give you more knowledge to share with us always. Thank you. And I have one question I want to ask about Guru and disciple. You do mention that sometimes we look at the Guru, the qualities of Guru, and who we want him to be our Guru, but there's one thing we don't look, is if we are qualified to be the disciple of the Guru. Yes. So my question is that, me particularly, most of the time, I feel like I am not qualified to be the disciple of my Guru. Because most of the time, if I listen to his classes, one way or another, it's more like he's talking to me, you know. Even after the class, the words will still be clinking in your mind. And so my question is, this is not what I want to be because of the nature of the situation you are in. So if you have this situation like this, like you think that you are not qualified to be the disciple of your Guru, maybe one way or another, you think you cannot complete all his instructions because of the struggles we have and everything. What advice do we give? Do you still have to take initiation from Guru? Because it is, as it is said in every devotee, you need to have a Guru. You have to take initiation from Guru so that he can help you to become a good devotee. So what advice will you give in situation like this?
So there's a
Hare
few,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, there's a few key things to do. First of all, the mood of any disciple is that I'm not qualified. So if it's just a question of mood, but we are following properly, that's actually if a devotee is following properly the instructions and commitments to their Guru, and the devotee doesn't feel qualified, that is all part of their qualification. That's good. If it's the case that the person doesn't feel qualified because they're not following, then they should follow, actually. We should do what we can to follow. And there's nothing wrong with asking the guru for the help to become qualified, you see? So the whole idea is that so Prabhupada said, it's okay to make a mistake, but don't make the same mistake. Meaning that wherever we are, that's not the full story. The mood should be, because the goal is so high. No one should ever feel I'm qualified, I'm great. Yeah, I'm a great disciple. No. If we really have respect and see how great our guru is, if we see how great our spiritual masters are, there's no way that a disciple will ever feel qualified. If a disciple feels qualified, it means he or she, they can't see their guru. Yeah, that's the first point. Now, if I don't feel qualified because I'm not following properly and I'm struggling to follow properly, then I should still approach the guru, because what is the purpose of guru? He's the teacher who helps me to follow. Right? He's the teacher who helps me to become qualified. Right? So if I feel unqualified because I'm not actually following properly, if this person is actually the person who's the right guru for me, guru means someone who I can inquire from, I can confide in, I can take guidance from, I can surrender to. Tadvidi pripratena, priprasnena sevaya, upadikshantite jnanam, jnaninas tatvadashanaha. So it's even more important, therefore, that I go to him. If I'm not able to follow, it's even more important that I go and say, Guru Maharaj, this is why I'm struggling. What would your advice be? Please guide me. How can I improve? You see? So either way, yes, we have to have a guru, but we also have to understand the purpose of the guru and to really engage in that relationship. Because if we relate, the sign of the proper relationship with the guru is that one gets the strength, the inspiration, if they follow that instruction, so that they can follow properly. So in one sense, it all leads back to the same thing. If I have the proper guru and I'm acting properly as a disciple and I'm approaching them properly, just by that relationship, I will develop the strength to follow properly. It will be automatically coming as a result. Does that answer your question, Bhakta Hassan?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so very, very super grateful for your answers. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. No problem. So
His Grace Harichakra Prabhu, are you still there?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Obeisances.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. The question I'm asking is during Prabhu, BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance.
Humble
All
obeisance.
glories to you, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to the Supreme. When you were talking, you made mention about how the pure devotee, or the scripture says that everybody is a devotee by nature. Everybody is a devotee. So if someone is following a particular path or someone is covered in a certain mood, we shouldn't conclude that that person is maybe lost or something. But we have been given the opportunity to help the person uncover him or herself. Right. Yeah, that's a very powerful statement.
That's not. I didn't come up with that statement. That's from our spiritual master. He said that.
Yeah. I heard the reference.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, that statement is a very powerful statement. Why? Because we could realize, I'm talking about even in my personal life, even though I call myself a devotee, I say I'm practicing Krishna consciousness. But somebody like my mom, she never calls herself a devotee. She never calls herself practicing Krishna consciousness. She was a Muslim. But there are so many things that I learned from her. Just by seeing the way she would speak to me, the way she would act, I learned so many things. So sometimes it becomes a little bit bewildering to me that what is actually happening? That do I have to think that because I call myself a devotee, that that is the best thing, or everybody, somebody might not even be calling him or herself a devotee, but he might be in a very crucial position
Yes,
to actually enhance my Krishna consciousness.
absolutely. I love that.
Yes, yes. So I want you to give a little bit in depth about this situation, because I understand that a lot of devotees have have that problem, where we think that because we are chanting Hare Krishna and everyone else who is not chanting Hare Krishna or something is not actually in a good position to be qualified to go back to God.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great point. So there's many things to say about it. I'll try and keep it limited. See, in our scriptures, it's explained that the Kanishta Adhikari, they think I'm a devotee and no one else is, right? Or they think I'm a devotee, my Guru Maharaj is a devotee, everyone else, meh. Because the Kanishta Adhikari doesn't know how, he or she can't relate to other devotees properly. Madhyam Adhikari, this is explained in Nectar of Instruction. Madhyam Adhikari thinks there are the devotees and then there are the non-devotees, right? They make that distinction. But even the non-devotees, they see those non-devotees who are innocent, who are open, I will try to help them, and they're always serving the pure devotee. So they discriminate. So Prabhupada says we should at least become Madhyam. Uttama Adhikari, he or she thinks everyone else is a devotee except me. And that's why when someone is at that level of consciousness, they can't preach, because their vision is that everyone else, they're devotees, they have love for Krishna. It's only me who's so fallen that I don't. Therefore, I go to them to learn. Now, interestingly enough, in this verse we read, is mentioning Uddhava. 11th canto has a section called the Uddhava Gita. And in the Uddhava Gita, one of the things that are being spoken of is learning from the 24 gurus. So to your point, Hari Chakra, actually, because this energy is Krishna's energy, he can teach us many, many lessons through practically everyone, not just through the living entities, not just through people who may not realize that they're a devotee. Krishna can teach us lessons from the sun, the moon, the trees, the grass, everything, because it's all his energy. So if we have that desire to learn, then Krishna, directly and indirectly, so directly in the heart, indirectly through his energy, through his representatives, he can teach us everything that we need to learn to come back to him. So actually, your vision is exactly the one which is mentioned in scripture. If we have the right mentality, and that mentality is a mentality which has been developed through spiritual knowledge, Shastra Chakshus, seeing the world through the Shastra. If we have sufficient Shastric knowledge, we can learn the lessons of the teachings, we can learn the conclusions of the Shastra, we can see that through every circumstance that we're in. Yeah, so and therefore you're absolutely right. As long as we have the one thing is that we have to have some spiritual knowledge, because otherwise we may take the wrong conclusion from things that happen around us. You see, sometimes we know situations where someone had some difficulty, and because they hadn't deeply imbibed the Shastric knowledge, or maybe even because of offenses, they then concluded that means Krishna doesn't exist. I went through this difficult situation, and therefore Krishna doesn't exist. So that's the wrong conclusion. Other people went through the same difficulty or even more difficult situation, and they came to a different conclusion. They came through the Shastric conclusion. So as long as devotees have proper understanding of the philosophy, then yes, you can learn the conclusions of the Shastra through anything and everything. But it has to be the conclusions of the Shastra, not a speculative, idea. That's the key point.
Well, thank you so much, His Grace BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu. Dear devotees, I think you will agree with me that we have to give our speaker a little break today. He's trying to save us, so he's going to say, okay, I'll take one question. But I think we may have to let him take a break. But Prabhuji, before you take a break, before we bring this to a close, It's so beautiful. I mean, I wish that this could be my life and I don't have to do anything else. I mean, I believe all of us may feel that way, that will there be a point in time in our life that we are not very much concerned about anything, just hearing Krishna Katha, that's all. We pray that day comes. But there is one question in the chat room from one devotee, Purushottama Prabhu, and it is stemming from the question Mitravinda Devi asked about someone, excuse me. All right, let me read. It says, thank you for this wonderful class, dear Prabhuji. My question is about who to trust after revealing one's mind, and it tends to be used against him or her. So is it wrong for the person to trust that you only trust Guru and Krishna, and you can't trust anybody else because you reveal your mind to someone else, and the person you revealed your mind to uses this revelation to hurt you? So he just wants to know, should we not trust anyone other than Guru and Krishna?
No, that won't work. If we are sadhakas, if we're practicing spiritual life, we see again, it's like this. The spiritual master tells us to develop relationships with devotees. So if I trust my guru and my guru says, develop relationships with devotees, and I don't do it, then actually what I'm saying is I don't trust my guru. Krishna says, and his representatives talk about this, right? About associating with devotees. He says, those who claim to be my devotees are not my devotees. Those who are devotees of my devotees, they're actually my devotees, right? He talks about devotees serving together, sadhu sangha, right? So many things, right? So again, if we say I trust Guru and I trust Krishna, but I don't do what they say, it means I don't trust them. You see? So trusting Guru and Krishna means I will follow their instructions, but I will do it expertly. So we have to do a little bit of analysis. When that person when what I shared was used against me, we have to really try to honestly look, was it used against me because I did something wrong and it should have been brought up? You know, let's say I'm just giving an example. I don't know you and I'm not saying that you've done any of this, but let's say that I confided in someone that I'd stolen from another devotee. And then the devotee who I confided in, they actually told the authorities, this person stole from another devotee. And I'm like, well, I trusted you. You know, how could you say you did? I can't trust it. No. Actually, it's good. They should, because I did something wrong. And they pointed out to the right authorities that I did something wrong. That doesn't mean that they're untrustworthy, actually. You see? And this is why that maturity has to be there. Is it that actually that was the right thing for them to do, even though I didn't like it? It requires some real searching of the heart. So that's the first point. Second, if it's actually that they used it against me unfairly, unnecessarily, you know, and I was innocent, then even then I should forgive them. I should take it. Okay, now I understand that they may have had something going on at that time. It could be that there's a character issue. Okay, so then I relate to them in a different way. It could be situational. They're not normally like this, but on that occasion, they were under stress. They were going through some difficulty. So it's always about why. It turned out a certain way. Why did Krishna allow it to turn out a certain way? What is he trying to teach me? And honestly, because often when we say, what's he trying to teach me? We often think he's teaching me that they're bad, they're like this. But sometimes he's teaching me about myself. No, you did something wrong. It's good that they said something. And actually, maybe the lesson is, I don't know your situation, but I'm just giving possibilities. Sometimes it's like, well, you should be humble. They were right. That was wrong. And, you know, it's good that they told someone that you'd actually made that mistake. And now you should learn from the mistake and don't do it again, you know? So it's why. And that why, this is interesting. If I learn the lesson properly, I don't have to keep going through the experience. It's not between me and them. It's actually between me and Krishna. Because if something happens and I don't learn the lesson from it, then even if I don't talk to this person, I guarantee you something similar will happen through someone else. Because behind the person who's delivering the message, it's Krishna who's writing the letter. You see, again, behind the person who delivers the message, there's Krishna who's writing the letter. You see? So I think that I don't like the letters that come from this devotee. So I stopped talking to them. But I still get, but I don't realize because the letter's coming from Krishna, he's just going to give the letters to someone else. Yeah. You see? What I've seen is that when we learn the lessons, then we don't have to keep having that lesson recur in our lives. So it requires some deep honesty. Why did this happen? Did it happen because I did something wrong and actually I deserved to be picked up on it? Did it happen because I lacked discrimination and therefore I wasn't mature enough to see that this isn't the right person to confide to on this particular topic? Did it happen because the person's a good person, they're just having a bad day, which we all have from time to time, so I should forgive them? You see? Will I have to really look at what is the lesson that Krishna has for me through this circumstance? Did it happen because I'm a very intolerant person? And so Krishna keeps sending me people who disappoint me so that I'll learn to become more tolerant, right? Or did it happen because I've got, and again, I'm not saying you, or did it happen because I'm a little bit sentimental and I've got this sentimental idea that all devotees are wonderful, even though the scripture says they're practicing sadhakas, there'll be different levels of advancement, but I insist on holding on to my own idea. Yeah, Bhagavatam says that, yeah, but actually, I'm going to hold on to my own idea. And then Krishna's therefore sending them to me who are letting me down in some way because he wants me to be very grounded in the reality. You know, I want you to love the devotees for where they are. I don't want you to be a devotee who thinks I only love the devotees when I think that they're perfect. I want to deepen your love by creating a situation where you will see someone, you'll see what's good about them, you will sometimes experience their flaws, and you can still love them anyway, because you look at them, you'll think, yes, I make mistakes as well. So they're just like me. So if I hate them, then then how am I, how am I any different? And sometimes Krishna allows it to happen because it's an opportunity for us to help to serve them through feedback. Prabhu, I just want to say that this isn't good. When people share something in confidence with you that's sensitive and there's no reason to tell it to other people and they've not done anything wrong, and you go and then make gossip about it, you then damage the entire community of devotees because it builds a culture of distrust. So here, some feedback, some well-intended feedback, because I care about your own journey in Krishna consciousness. So I'm going to offer that feedback to you as a gift, and then you decide what to do with it. So what's the lesson? That's the heartbeat of every experience that we have. What is Krishna trying to teach me? And if I learn the lesson, amazing things happen. If I don't, even if I stop talking to this person, guaranteed the lesson will approach me through someone else until I learn it.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dear devotees, I'm sure that we all are filled with joy, bliss of Krishna Katha today. And we're going to humbly curtail your enjoyment for today by humbly requesting you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace, BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu, for sharing his love and wisdom with us all today. Jai. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare.
Jai Vanchakarmatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Devatam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namaha.
Kochi Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
BHUTABHAVANA Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. So